Welcome everyone. My name is Nic Atkins. I'm the ZEP Product Marketing Manager at Zoeller Company. We appreciate you joining us today for our Zoeller Engineered Products Overview webinar. Before we get started, I wanted to cover a few details. Please note the email address written below the title of your screen. Should you have any questions after we wrap up, you can send them to webinars@zoeller.com and we will get back to you. I want to start off to tell you a little bit about myself. Again, my name's Nic Atkins. I've been with Zoeller Company since 2013. I've done a small stint out in our plant, hanging parts and doing some other odds and ends around the factory itself. And then I moved up to our customer experience department, going through customer support, product support, and inside sales. From there, I moved to our product marketing manager position, replacing Steve Doolittle, who actually started ZEP over 30 years ago. So I'm able to step in his role and continue on with the ZEP brand. So with that, let's go ahead and dive into the overview that we have here for ZEP. So real quickly, we're just going to go over a timeline here. Although this is ZEP, we're going to go ahead and just kind of give you a backstory of what Zoeller is and where we started from. Zoeller started back in 1939 in August Pop Zoeller's basement, which is actually just right down the road from where we're at today at the corporate office. In 1939, him and his family started up, and after a couple years, they ended up moving to the location that we're currently still sitting at today. In 1961, we actually introduced the original Vortex impeller that is well known in the marketplace. And then in 1989, we acquired a company to expand our pump offering, eventually be known as the ZEP line. We had 3 individuals who were brought on board to get ZEP up and running. One of those individuals is John Zoeller. The other is Steve Doolittle. And another one is John Engineered, who was our engineer at the time for this product line. So 1989, we purchased it, but we technically don't say we started until 1991 because that's when our first true sale and sales meeting to kick off the line was. So at the time in 1991, like you see the picture in the middle there, we just kind of copied and pasted the company that we bought from, used their drawings, their design, and started off that way. From 1991 to 1999, we made a few changes and we created the new look and design that everyone knows for ZEP to be today. That's the pump with the fins and the darker green on it, like you see in the top right-hand side of your screen. In 2017, we started taking ZEP and trying to push it a little bit more. So we actually created our own ZEP team. So it wasn't just a part of the standard pump line. And we separated it and started pushing it more and more out into the marketplace. Zoeller's always been known as a small pump company, but with ZEP, we've been able to expand that knowledge to go all the way up to 60 horsepower. Since 2017, we've added multiple items. 2019, we were able to expand our low pressure sewer system lines to where we have more options available for drop-in replacements, new installations, stuff that we'll cover a little bit later on in this presentation. 2022, we've had a few new additions with a horizontal discharge grinder and a 10 and 15 horsepower grinder pump that we'll cover a little bit later on as well. So some of the highlights that we have for ZEP, we're not just a small pump manufacturer. A lot of people think of Zoeller, they think of just the M53 little half horsepower residential pump. We are a lot more than that now. We've expanded. We are up to 60 horsepower on solids handling pumps and now up to 15 horsepower on the grinder pumps. We also offer package systems through basins, control panels. So we're more than just a small little residential pump now. Our product quality is second to none. We have quality checks from the point that the product, or the components I should say, come through the door, all the way through our painting process, through the machining process, and the assembly process, all here in the Louisville location. Now there's checks and balances all the way with the operators and our quality control team. And even the office employees, if they happen to be passing through the plant, they have an obligation to keep an eye out for anything that might not look right and let someone know to double check it before it actually gets built or shipped out to our customers. One thing that sets the ZEP line, the Zoeller Engineered Product line, separate from the Zoeller Pump Company line is we are built to order. Our pumps are built specifically for the specifications for the job. So that might be a trimmed impeller, a shaft seal upgrade, cord length changes, whatever it might be. It's one person that's built that pump from start to finish and you ship it out the door from there. We are the one-stop shop for complete package systems. You come here for our pumps, we'll size the basin to go with that pump, and we'll also give you the control package that you need to complete your job. So all you have to do is place one PO to us and we'll ship everything to you. And all you have to do is your contractor has to drop it in the ground and you're good to go. Some of the design highlights that we're going to cover is our cool run design. We used a fin motor housing and an adapter housing on our pumps. What this is, if you are familiar with our pumps and you're looking at it, it has a rigid outside to it. And having that rigid outside allows us to have more surface area for that liquid to pull that heat away from that pump. So it's maybe a 1/4 inch or so. Don't seem like a whole lot, but you can see here on the chart, we're saving about 15 degrees Fahrenheit having those fins on there, allowing that pump to run cooler. Of course, we know heat's the #1 killer of a pump. So the more heat we can pull away from that motor, the better off we're going to be to allow that pump to last longer. So same thing with oil. We use oil, dielectric oil, in all of our pumps. What we have found is oil is a great way to dissipate heat throughout a motor housing. So if you have a hot spot that's located in one spot on that motor, that oil takes that heat, dissipates it throughout the entire motor housing, puts it into the cast iron body, which again has those fins on there, that goes out into that liquid. Now with an air-filled motor, yes, the motor winding classification will be a little bit more for heat, but the heat's going to be concentrated in one spot and won't be able to dissipate throughout the entire motor housing to help prolong that pump. And speaking of liquid levels, ideally we would like to see the pump completely submerged, but of course you can't always have it that way. It's real world, so you potentially have just the cap of the pump exposed, again keeping the motor housing submerged in liquid, and then worst case scenario, having that liquid level off point just above the inlet so that pump never draws any air, which of course starts drawing air, then the pump's just going to run continuously and burn up from there. The other design highlight we have here is our patented moisture detection system. Now, of course, we know a lot of companies out there do have some type of moisture detection system, but with Zoeller or ZEP, we have a cup, if you will, that's engrooved into the cap of that pump. So if for some reason water were to wick down your power cord or come through the gasket that's between the motor and the cap of that pump, water is going to go to the lowest point in that cavity, which would be where the moisture sensors are located, and it's going to trigger that same, whether it be a light or an audible alarm that you have in your panel, to go off to let you know you have a seal fail. But that seal fail could also be in the bottom of your pump, which is technically where most of the seal fail is going to occur. So our seal fail is mainly located again at the bottom inside your adapter housing, which is located between two shaft seals that run independently of one another, which we technically call a dual seal. Some may call it a tandem seal. But we do have oil inside of this cavity, and if for some reason that lower shaft seal fails or a gasket fails and water starts to seep inside of that adapter housing, the electrical current that's inside there will change, which will trigger the moisture sensor to go up to your panel to let you know you do have a seal fail issue. Just because that lower shaft seal fails doesn't mean your pump's failed. It's still working, but it's highly recommended to go ahead and pull that pump and have it serviced to make sure that shaft seal is replaced before your upper shaft seal fails. And of course, if your upper shaft seal fails, water gets inside that motor housing, you have catastrophic failure, and it's a lot easier to replace a couple dollar shaft seal than it is to have to replace the whole motor housing or replace the entire pump itself. Now, this only works if you do have the feature built into your control panel. If you don't have that in your control panel and your pump does come with this moisture sensor, you would just cap off each individual wire and run it to your panel. So there are two different designs that we do have in ZEP. We have a single seal and a dual seal. The single seal, of course, is just a single one shaft seal that's on that pump, and we have a dual seal pump, which has the two shaft seals that we just discussed. It does come with an adapter housing, giving it that extra cavity inside of the pump. And you can see side by side here the difference in the height between those two pumps. The only pumps in ZEP that are not dual seal is our 6150, our 6260 series. On our grinder side, the 7008, 9, and 10, and our 7020 and 7021. So we're going to dive into the commercial duty pumps that we have here. And this is going to be very high level, not getting into a lot of the details as far as performances or anything along those lines. But with our commercial duty pumps, the benefit with these pumps Any single phase pumps have all the starting components located inside of the pump itself. So if it's 115 volt single phase, you can use a piggyback switch to operate these pumps if needed. Of course, you could also use a control panel, but it gives you that option and flexibility to use a piggyback switch if needed. Like all of our pumps, each individual pump is 100% computerized tested. So we pressurize it, make sure there's no leakage between the shaft seals or gaskets, and make sure that pump is completely sealed up. All of our commercial duty pumps, except for the 6155 and 6267, have a Class 1 Division 1 explosion proof rating, which is for gaseous environments, and a Class 2 Division 1 has a rating for the dust areas. All of our commercial duty pumps are rated for the steam condensate, which is for like boiler blowdown, except for our 6155 and 6267 model pump. So to get into each individual pump model here, our 6155 Effluent Pump is our half horsepower cast iron constructed pump. It does use an engineered plastic vortex impeller. This is one of our smallest pumps that we have in the ZEP line. The reason being is we had all these large pumps, but we weren't able to capture those smaller pump lines when a spec was going out or when a job was being awarded. So we had to create this pump in order to help our customers out to have the full breadth of line that we have today. It does only come in an 1.5 inch MPT vertical discharge. It does use a Viton gasket and a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal on that pump. Getting a little bit bigger in our Effluent Pump series is our 6160 and 6180 series. These pump range from a half horse up to a 2 horsepower, and they use a cast iron vortex impeller. It does come standard with an 1.5 inch MPT discharge that's threaded on the inside of that flange that you see pictured there. But if for some reason, if you are replacing a pump and you already have 2 inch or 3 inch discharge, we have the option to put a 2 inch or 3 inch bolted on flange, like you see pictured, onto that pump there. Now, this pump does have Viton gaskets. It is a dual seal, so it uses a silicon carbide carbon lower shaft seal and a carbon ceramic upper shaft seal. We're going to get into our sewage pumps on the commercial duty side with our 6267 pump. This is a half horsepower using an engineered plastic vortex impeller with a 2 inch vertical MPT discharge. It is single seal using a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal and Viton gaskets. Like our 6160 and 6180, we do have the sewage version of it, a 6280 and our 6290s ranging from half horse up to 2 horsepower. They also use a cast iron vortex impeller, but they come standard with a 2 inch MPT discharge or 3 inch MPT discharge. Both of these are the bolted on flange that you see pictured there. So when ordering, it has to be one or the other. It does have Viton gaskets and dual seal. So it is a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal on the lower side and a carbon ceramic shaft seal on the upper side. In our 6400 series, we'll round out our commercial duty offering here. We have it available in a 2 or 3 horsepower motor using the cast iron vortex impeller. It only comes available in that 4 inch horizontal flange discharge. It's an ANSI flange that we have on there. Like the others, it has a Viton gasket for all those gaskets built into that pump. And it is dual seal using a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal for the lower side and carbon ceramic for that upper side. All these commercial duty pumps you're going to see more in smaller parking lots for dewatering applications. Could see them in a small school or a small strip mall, something along those lines where you're not requiring a whole lot of flow compared to what our larger pumps will do. But these are very robust pumps that we have to offer. Now we're going to get more of our built-to-order pumps, if you will. So each pump in our heavy-duty solids handling pumps are built-to-order, customized for your specific specifications. Whether that might be a specific design point that you have to hit, we can trim that impeller down to hit that specific point. We also have inverter duty motors on these pumps. So if you need to vary the speed of that pump, whether it's say a parking lot application where you may not expect it to run full power because of a standard rainstorm that you might see in the area, but whenever that time comes to where we do have a heavy rain, you need it to be full power, we have the pump and panel configuration that you'll need. So like our commercial duty pump offering, these pumps are tested for air leakage, but every single pump has a 5-point audit that's ran on it at no additional charge. We run that audit, we check to make sure that we have our max flow, our max head meet, and then 3 points in between. If you are trimming an impeller, we'll make sure one of those points is a design point that you're needing, and we'll double check it there. All these audits are available to you with the serial number that comes with that pump. So if you need it down the road, or if you're troubleshooting and you want to verify the pump's still doing what it needs to do, reach out to us and we can get that performance audit to you. In addition to the standard performance audit, we can sell you a certified audit, which we will give you 2 additional points to check. So instead of 5, you have a 7-point audit that's ran, and an in-house PE will review that audit and put his stamp on there for you. These pumps are only available in a Class 1 Division 1 explosion proof. Again, Class 1 Division 1 being a gaseous environment. Some other features that we have available for our heavy duty solids handling pumps. They can be in a dry pit configuration, a high temp, or steam condensate. Not every single model meets those, so definitely double check your technical data sheets when you're picking a pump model to verify the pump model and horsepower that you're looking at falls within our limitations on what we can and can't do with those pump options. First, we're going to dive into our 61 HD series. This particular one's available in 2 different motor styles, the 1750 RPM and 3450 RPM, with the 1750 RPM having a 1 to 7.5 horsepower motor and the 3450 RPM being 5 to 10 horsepower. These do come standard with the ductile iron semi-open impeller, but you can get a vortex impeller if need be. Same with the discharge. It comes standard in a 3-inch or 4-inch horizontal, or of course a 3-inch MPT vertical discharge. With all these different configurations that you could possibly get with our heavy duty solids handling pumps, I will point out that it's a great idea to pay attention to your performance curves when selecting the pump. I can say myself, I've done it too, where you're looking at a design point at one particular pump curve, but you're looking at the semi-open curve and not the vortex curve. Or you're looking at the 4-inch horizontal and not the 3-inch vertical discharge. So just verify whenever you're looking at these that you're looking at the right, even the right RPM curve, your right impeller, and your discharge curves, and even 3-phase and single phase can have a little difference in there as well. Like our commercial duty pumps, these pumps come standard with a Viton gasket, but although they're dual seal, they come standard with a carbon ceramic upper and lower shaft seal, with silicon carbide being our most common upgraded shaft seal available for these pumps. Going to go a little bit bigger with our 62 HD series, available in a 1750 RPM 5 to 20 horsepower motor. Like our 61 HD, it's available in a semi-open ductile iron impeller or the optional vortex impeller. And we also have a 4-inch or a 6-inch horizontal ANSI flange discharge on these pumps. Using Viton gaskets, and just like our 61 HD, has the dual seal with the carbon ceramic upper and lower shaft seal with the silicon carbide upgrade available. And our last solids handling heavy duty pump is our 64 HD series, available in a 25 to 60 horsepower 1725 RPM motor. It does use a ductile iron enclosed impeller, and we also have a vortex impeller available now for the 4-inch discharge. It does come with Viton gaskets and again the carbon ceramic upper and lower shaft seal with the silicon carbide option available. With these heavy duty solids handling pumps, we do keep job folders on all of our serialized pumps. They have the history of that particular pump. So say you order a pump with a semi-open impeller, you get to the job site, a couple of years goes by, and you realize you're having a lot of clogging issues and the semi-open impeller is not able to get through all those clogs. We can swap out the semi-open impeller with the vortex impeller if need be. Of course, we just have to verify the design point and all that stuff, because we do lose a little bit of design flow with the vortex impeller over the semi-open impeller. We'll keep track record of that in our job folder, so down the road when you need to replace that pump, we'll have that record to show, hey, we switched it out at this point in time. Do we need to switch it to a vortex or keep it with the semi-open impeller? It's just a good living library of that pump while it's in that application for any records that you might need for down the road. So from the solids handling pumps, we're going to switch gears and get over to our grinder pumps. Our grinder pumps use a scissor-like cutting action grinder plate and cutter. Some of our models, specifically our 7011 and some of our heavy-duty grinder pumps, have a reversing option on them. These pumps are only available in the Class 1 Division 1 explosion proof. We offer both a centrifugal and a progressing cavity grinder pump, and we'll show you those there here in just a minute as well. And like all of our other pumps, they are 100% computerized tested. So first we're going to jump into our single seal grinder pumps, the 7008, 9, and 10, available in 1, 1.5, and 2 horsepower motor with a Vortex plastic impeller. You can see there on your screen on the bottom left-hand side is the cutter plate for this particular grinder pump. It is available in a 1.25 inch MPT vertical discharge, and we now have a 1.25 inch horizontal discharge. The benefit to that horizontal discharge is now we can replace our competitors' pumps with our pump. With the vertical discharge, we were handicapped and not able to go into a competitor's rail system because by the time you adapted to the rail system with the vertical discharge, it made our pump too tall to actually connect up to the rail system. So we were eliminated, but now we are back in consideration for those types of applications. They are built with the Viton gasket that we have across the ZEP line, and we have a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal. Again, this is a single seal grinder pump that we use for that pump. Jump up here to our 7011, 12, and 13 dual seal grinder pump. All these are a 2 horsepower motor. We have a ductile iron Vortex impeller on the 7011 and 7013 with a bronze Vortex in the 7012 model. They use the same idea as the 7008, 9, and 10 cutter plate for the single directional 7012 and 13, but our 7011 is a reversing grinder pump, and you can see the cutter plate that we use for the 7011 on your screen here, using more of a star-shaped cutter. So regardless of which direction that pump is pumping, you're going to get the exact same performance either direction. And just to clarify how the reversing grinder will actually work, it's not going to bump or reverse the same cycle. It's going to go, say, clockwise one cycle. Once it turns off and turns back on, it's going to go the opposite cycle on the next time it's being called out. These two have an 1.25 inch MPT vertical discharge or the horizontal discharge if needed to replace a competitor system. Using Viton gaskets and being dual seal, we have a lower shaft seal that's silicon carbide carbon, and the upper seal is carbon ceramic. Now we're going to get into our serialized grinder pumps, the 71 HD, available in a 3, 5, or 7.5 horsepower motor using a ductile iron Vortex impeller. This particular model has a high head, high flow, or a reversing model. Of course, reversing, we can only do it in the 3-phase flange models only. Say 3-phase flange model only because we have a 2-inch MPT vertical discharge that is an option on this pump. Just like our heavy-duty solids handling pumps, just verify when you're looking at these curves that you're looking at the right high head, high flow reversing curve and single phase or 3-phase options. Again, all those different options will vary those curves from case to case. It is a dual seal grinder pump using a carbon ceramic upper or lower shaft seal with the silicon carbide option on there. Our new 72 HD series is a 10 and 15 horsepower that uses a ductile iron Vortex impeller, currently only available in a high head model, and it's also available in a 3-inch or 4-inch horizontal flange ANSI discharge. We'll call out here though, as you can see pictured on your screen here, the left-hand side is the 4-inch discharge. The pump on the right is 3-inch. We're using the exact same pump housing from the 4-inch pump housing, but we're cutting into that adapter flange for the 3-inch discharge. For some reason you want to stock these or you're not 100% sure if the pump you're replacing is a 3-inch or 4-inch, I recommend ordering the 3-inch discharge because you can adapt it to a 3-inch or a 4-inch flange discharge without any issues. This particular pump does have Viton gaskets and carbon ceramic upper and lower shaft seals, with the silicon carbide shaft seal as an option. Both the 71 and 72 grinder pumps, you are able to trim the impeller to your specific design points, just like you can do on our heavy-duty solids handling pumps. Now, the ones we just covered are our centrifugal grinder pumps. We do have our 2 models, the 7020 and 7021, that are progressing cavity pumps. They're available in 1 or 2 horsepower motors. they use, instead of a vortex impeller, they use a hydraulic rotor and stator configuration to move that water. So what you'll see at the top right-hand side is the hydraulic stator, and that's a Buna material. So if you try to squeeze it, it's really tight. And we use the hydraulic rotor that goes inside of that and spins. With that hydraulic rotor, a couple features on it, you can kind of see it on there. We have some pump out vanes that are going to help push away debris from that shaft seal. We even have a shaft seal pocket. So you can kind of see the shaft seal expanded out from that hydraulic rotor there. That shaft seal sits down inside that pocket, and it just protects it from any debris that's in that material. Our competitors do not have the deflector shield with those pump out vanes or that shaft seal pocket. So their shaft seal is exposed to that liquid and whatever abrasive material is in that environment. So as that hydraulic rotor spins inside of that hydraulic stator, it's creating real small tight pockets for that water to be pressed through. And that's how we're able to get the shutoff pressures on this pump. If this particular pump were to run dry, of course, it would melt down that hydraulic stator. It would open up those cavities and it would give you more flow. Some people say, well, more flow is great. These pumps aren't meant to have high flow. We're talking a max flow of about 15, 16 gallons a minute on the far right side of the curve. The 2 horsepower will go up to 250 feet of head on this particular pump. With these pumps, we do have built in, you can kind of see it underneath the 1.25 inch horizontal discharge, a little bronze valve. It's a pressure relief valve that'll blow open once the 1 horsepower or 2 horsepower hit their max limit. The reason why we do that is because, of course, we know your size and your piping system based on what the pump's PSI output is. And we do not want this pump to fail and blow out all your fittings because it went above what our specified PSI rating is. So just a safety feature that we have built into these pumps for your piping system. This pump is built with the Viton gasket and does use a silicon carbide carbon shaft seal in it as well. So the progressing cavity grinder pump, of course, we can sell individually, but we also use it in our low pressure sewer systems. So first off, we're going to talk about our replacement units, our 6932. Again, this is using the 1 horse or 2 horsepower progressing cavity pump. And we can do it in a candy cane or a gooseneck discharge, whatever you might call that there, the first 2 pictures of those pump assemblies on the right-hand side. Or we have it available in a flex hose system that'll have our competitors disconnect at the end of it. With the candy cane or gooseneck discharge, there are a couple of options we have there. We have it cover mounted, which is what our competitors use, or you can do it in a freestanding. The benefit to the freestanding is the pump is actually sitting in the bottom of the tank, so it's not suspended, but it allows you to open up where that cover would be to actually see what's going on in the bottom side of that basin. So if something were to happen to the pump in a cover mounted system, you'd have to pull the pump out, inspect it, clean it, and stick it back down inside the basin. Whereas with the freestanding, that opening is exposed, and you can even do your maintenance check and spray it down from the top if you wanted to clean it instead of having to pull it. The other big thing that we want to make sure of whenever we're trying to cross these over is what type of EQD do you have? An EQD is an electrical quick disconnect, whether that's round or rectangular. I will say if for some reason you order the rectangular and you find out that it's a round plug when you get out to the job site, that is something that can be swapped out in the field. We have the components for that. It's an easy 10-minute fix to get that swapped out so you're up and running and good to go. For new installations, we do have package systems already ready to go for you, which includes the panel, the pump, and the basin. It's going to be the rotomotive basin that you see here pictured here, and that's included in our 6922 package system. This will include an RWD or an E model. So an E model, which is what most people are familiar with, is a non-automatic 230-volt single-phase pump, which you would have to run to a control panel and use your float switches to turn the pump on and off. An RWD model, which is what we have pictured on the left-hand side with that flex hose system, actually has an on and off float and a high water alarm float, which also acts as a redundant on-off switch hardwired into the head of that pump. So you only have 1 power cord, 6 wire coming out through the top of that basin there. These polyethylene basins are available in a 30 by 72, but if you do need to go a little bit deeper, you can do a 12-inch or 26-inch riser on top of it, just to put it a little bit further down into the ground. They're available in a wet well or a wet well, dry well configuration, we install the check valve, ball valve, discharge piping, all that you'll need just to drop this system into the ground and go. If for some reason the 30 by 72 or the 12-inch or 26-inch riser is not deep enough for you or round enough for you, we can go into fiberglass and go bigger on those basin assemblies. Especially if we need to go duplex, we'll have to go bigger in diameter. But if we need to go deeper than that 98-inch, fiberglass is the direction that we'll need to go. Some of the LPS accessories include a curb stop and a curb box, which is pictured here on the right-hand side in the drawing and the actual picture itself. The importance to the curb stop is it's an extra set of a ball valve, if you will, that's out near the main. If for some reason you're working inside your system and your ball valve in the basin has failed, or you're doing work on it and you forget to close it, if you do not have that curb stop, the entire city's worth of sewage out in the street is going to be coming your direction. That pressurized main is looking for the path of least resistance. And if your valve is open, that's going to be the least resistance part of the force main, and it's going to be coming back towards you. So we'll always recommend putting a curb stop in. The curb box just goes over top of it so you can get access to that turn valve that's inside there. Just make sure that's turned to close, and then you'll be able to work inside of your system knowing that you have that extra protection out at the street. We have a stainless steel discharge flex hose that we can offer. Of course, basins settle, and if it's hard piped, that settling could potentially break that PVC piping. But with that flex hose, if there is any settling, you'll have a little bit of flexibility there to prevent any type of breakage in that discharge line. Last big thing that we now have is our LPS panels. These panels are specifically only for the RWD model pump, so they take the 6-wire cord. And because of that, we can use that on our competitors' system as well. If we need to replace a competitor's panel and their pump's still working, we have that option now to where all the same features, but we also have our Z-Control capabilities built into these panels. Comes standard with or without a generator receptacle, so a 61-204-0001 does not have the generator receptacle, but the 61-204-0002 does. So kind of wrapping things up here, we've talked pumps, but again, we can provide the whole system for you. We have the panels, basin assemblies. The best thing about it, as soon as it shows up to the job site, all you have to do is have the hole dug, drop everything in, run your electrical, and your job is complete. Go over some of the components that we do have. Control panels, I'm gonna call them stock panels. These are panels that we have sitting on the shelf, standard features, very cookie cutter, if you will. Simplex, duplex. Outside of that, we can get into our custom panels. It could be 2-page spec or 100-page spec. We can build a panel specifically for whatever specifications are called out for that control panel. Some of the float switches that we have here, we have clamped or weighted float switches like you see pictured here on the bottom left-hand side. All it is just a pivot point. So the clamp would go on to whether it's a discharge pipe or a float tree that would mount to the side of that basin. And that clamp would be the pivot point for allow that water level to raise your float, or the weight that's pictured on the left-hand side will act as your pivot point. Standard lengths are 20 to 50 foot, but if you need longer, please contact us. 50 foot, I believe, is the longest that we have shown in our literature. They do come normally open, but if you do have an application where you need a normally closed float switch, that is available as well. And float brackets. What we have pictured here in the middle is the one I commonly most use. And the reason being, it just allows you to hang all your excess cord length onto it, but it's available in a 6 or 4 hook bracket. We have the float tree that we mentioned just a second ago, but that's pictured on the far right-hand side. And now we also have a float tree similar, but it's going to be in a chain form with the weight sitting at the bottom of that basin, and then the chain links you'll be able to clamp your float switch to act as the pivot points. One of the biggest things that we offer that a lot of people don't realize is we do offer custom package systems. We can quote anywhere from 24-inch up to 120-inch in diameter. 48 inches typical shallow depth for a rail system. We can go all the way up to 360 inches, which is 30 foot. We could probably go a little bit deeper, but I know firsthand 30 foot's the deepest I've ever quoted. Pretty sure we can go much deeper than that if need be. A couple different cover option materials that we have, of course, fiberglass, steel, or aluminum. We have it available in a solid cover or a hatch cover. And in that hatch cover, we have a gas tight or just like the standard hatch. Difference is the standard hatch, you actually have the hinges on there. It's easy to open. A gas tight hatch that you would typically use indoors to keep fumes from getting out of your basin, it's going to be bolted down with no hinges. So if you need to remove that, you just have to remove all the bolts that are in there. It's gasketed. Remove that hatch, and then you can get access to those pumps down inside that basin. We have this available in 1.25" up to 6" discharge piping, just depending on what pump model you have. We'll pair up to what discharge piping size we need. And we will run that piping, whether it's through the cover, out the side of your basin, depending on the depth that you ask us to. This discharge piping could be Schedule 80, stainless steel, as the most common that we have. Galvanized, not so much in ZEP, but galvanized is an option. Another one that we're starting to see more of is a ductile iron piping. If you do need a ductile iron, definitely contact our support staff and they'll be able to get that quoted for you. Some options that we have available in a basin builder that most of our reps have access to, but if it's outside of that, like an H20 cover, or if you're needing a valve box that's attached to the basin, and valve box is of course what the name is. The ball valve, check valve is going to be in a separate basin, whether that's attached or detached from that fiberglass basin, and most codes will require some type of valve box so that whoever's working on it doesn't have to go inside the basin to turn the valves on or off. If for some reason your basin is going to be sticking out of the ground some because it may be in a floodplain, we can offer a UV protected coating that goes around that fiberglass to protect it from degrading over time. And we can also do a freestanding basin, depending on your space, or if you're not able to dig into the ground, we do have it to where you can stick a basin above ground, but just something custom that we have to have a conversation about before we can get you quoted. Just a couple quick pictures here. Again, the picture on the left-hand side is a basin with an attached valve box, and then the basin on the right-hand side is a 96" diameter basin that we actually had to build on a flatbed out in our parking lot just because of how large it was. It couldn't fit inside of our dock doors at the time. Now, I'd love for you to be able to buy a package system from me so I can build it in-house, but I understand you can't always do so. You can use concrete, or you may already have an existing basin in the ground that you want to retrofit. If so, we do have some components available. We have your rail systems that you can buy. When you buy that 39- rail system, it'll come with the base elbow, the disconnect that would attach to the pump, and the upper guide bracket. The guide rails themselves, whether it be 3/4 inch or 2-inch guide rails, will have to be supplied by the contractor or the installer, just because we don't know what that exact length will be. And even if you tell us what length it will be, guarantee you it'll be different by the time it gets to the job site. So we just put that on the installer to make sure they get the right piping. That can be galvanized or stainless steel. Prefer stainless steel just so it doesn't degrade over time, but that is there for them to install. On basins that are 10 to 12 feet deeper, depending on the rail system, you will need an intermediate guide bracket. If you order the package system from us, we automatically put that in there. But if you're doing a field install, that will be a separate item that will have to be purchased. And that just keeps those guide pipes from basically becoming like spaghetti. The longer they get, the more wobbly they get. And that pump could potentially come off those guide rails if it gets too wobbly. And then a lifting cable. We provide that. Some people prefer chain. We don't offer chain, so we can do just the lifting bracket. So a couple of configurations that we can do for you if needed. We offer valves, check valves, ball valves, plug valves, and all shapes and sizes, if you will. We even offer some valves that we don't even have on our literature. So if you do have a special application that you're needing some type of valve, please reach out to us. My inside sales team will be more than happy to try to work with our vendors to see what we can get for you. So we're making sure we're building the package system that meets your needs for your job site. So with that, this concludes the presentation portion of our webinar. I hope you found the information valuable, and we'd love to hear your feedback. The input we receive helps us develop future content and topics for new webinars, so we really appreciate you giving us your thoughts. And if you enjoy our webinars, we want to be sure you know we also offer in-person training and live virtual training sessions at our Zoeller University on-campus location, the Center for Excellence. The center is a 6,000 square foot facility with a classroom area for lectures and a demo room for hands-on learning. Our CFE can tailor courses for anyone, whether you're a beginner or more seasoned professional. You can reach out to your local Zoeller representative to book a trip to the CFE. Should you think you might have any lingering questions Again, please jot down our webinar's email and send them our way. And with that, we'll wrap things up. Thank you all so much for taking the time to join us today. Have a great rest of your day.